She helped a blind girl at the cafe, not knowing her mom was a secret billionaire. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true-to-life narratives that reveal how a single act of kindness can flip destinies. Now, prepare yourself for a tale of quiet defiance, hidden wounds, and a meeting that changed 3 lives forever. It was just past 4 p.m. when Maya Lin wiped down the edge of table 6 with the kind of efficiency that comes from muscle memory, not motivation. Her shift at the narrow cafe near King's Cross had started at dawn, like every other day, and she hadn't eaten since morning. The London cold didn't bother her anymore. It was the silence, the kind that settled between customers and staff like invisible frost, that made her feel like a ghost. She looked up briefly as the glass door chimed. No one entered. Instead, through the condensation on the front window, she noticed something odd near the outdoor benches. A little girl. Alone. No coat. Sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. Maya squinted. No adult in sight. The child sat motionless, hands brushing the air in slow, cautious circles like she was searching for something invisible. One hand bumped a paper cup. It fell, but she didn't flinch. Maya dropped her cloth, stepping toward the door before the voice behind her snapped. Leave her. That's not your table. Her manager, Theo, didn't even look up from his tablet. You're not paid to get involved in outside drama. Maya hesitated. She knew the rules. Minimum wage. Maximum compliance. But her instincts didn't care. Something about the girl, small, alone, blind, triggered something raw. She pushed open the door. Hi, Maya said gently, kneeling in front of the child. I'm Maya. You okay out here? The girl's face turned toward her, voice, slow and measured. I'm Alia, she said quietly. My mom went to make a call. She said wait here. Maya glanced around again. No one matched the profile of a missing mother. She looked back. Alia's dress was soaked at the hem, her fingers pale. When did she leave? The train clock said, 2. I think. It was 4:06 now. Maya took a breath. Are you cold? No, Alia lied. But I spilled my juice. It's sticky. Maya's throat tightened. She wrapped her scarf off her neck and gently placed it around the girl's shoulders. Let's go inside. Just for a few minutes, okay? Mom said not to move, Alia whispered. She'll be angry. She can be angry later, Maya muttered, half to herself. She reached for Alia's hand, and the girl didn't resist. Inside, Theo glared. What are you doing? She's not a customer, she's a child, Maya snapped. And she's freezing. Before Theo could object, Maya had already seated the girl at a small corner table and brought her a warm cup of milk. She didn't ask. She just did it. Alia held the cup with both hands like it was treasure. You sound careful, Alia said. Not like other people. Other people? They talk loud. And slow. Like I'm broken. Maya smiled. You're not broken. You're just not looking at the world the way they are. Alia tilted her head. You're kind. My mom doesn't like kind people. She says they want something. That made Maya pause. I don't want anything, she said truthfully. Then you're rare, Alia whispered. What Maya didn't know was that across the street, behind the tinted window of a black Bentley, a woman in a sleek coat had been watching everything for over an hour. Evelyn Carter, CEO of Carter Holdings, known for her ruthless business empire and airtight privacy, was listening. Not just observing, but studying. Every gesture, every word. When Maya offered Alia her own muffin and gently described what it looked like so the girl could picture it in her mind, Evelyn's driver spoke for the first time. Should I intervene, ma'am? Evelyn's eyes narrowed. No, she said coldly. Just wait. And in that moment, the wheels of something far bigger than Maya could imagine began to turn. But for now, she just focused on wiping the juice off Alia's small fingers, unaware that the girl in front of her was not just any abandoned child, but the center of a storm wrapped in silk and silence. And she, just a tired waitress with no power, no connections, no backup, had just stepped into the middle of it. Don't forget to stay with us. What happens next will test every boundary between truth, control, and what it really means to see someone. Under the glare of the cafe's fluorescent lights and Theo's boiling frustration, Maya figured she had no more shifts left to salvage. By the time she clocked out that night, Alia's seat was already empty. No one saw the woman who picked her up, and no one asked questions. The next morning, Maya found a white envelope taped to her front door. No return address. Inside was a single card, thick, matte, with silver embossed lettering. Carter Holdings requests your presence. 11 a.m. sharp. A driver will be waiting. No signature. Just coordinates. At 10:45, Maya stood outside a glass tower that didn't belong to her world. The building stretched into the London skyline like a knife edge. She wore her cleanest blouse, which still had a faint coffee stain under the collar. The driver, dressed in all black, didn't speak as he guided her to the 47th floor. When the elevator opened, the air felt different. It was too quiet. The kind of silence that usually followed signing your life away. A woman stood near the window, back turned, arms crossed. Her silhouette was sharp, composed. She didn't turn. "Maya Lynn," she said. "You're punctual." Maya swallowed. "You're Evelyn Carter." Now the woman turned, slowly. Her face was ageless. Cold. Not unfriendly, just unreadable. "Sit," she said. Maya obeyed. "I watched you," Evelyn began, voice calm, clinical. "At the cafe. The way you treated my daughter. Not with pity. Not with performance. But with intention." Maya stayed silent. "She hasn't responded to anyone like that in years," Evelyn continued. "Alia is sensitive. Intuitive. Most people frighten her. You didn't." She walked toward the table and opened a file. Inside was a thick contract and a check. Maya caught a glimpse of the number. She nearly laughed. It was more than she made in a year. "I'd like to offer you a position," Evelyn said. "Full-time. Companion. Educator. Presence. Call it what you like." Maya blinked. "Why me?" Evelyn tilted her head slightly. "Because Alia asked. And I trust her judgment more than anyone's." Maya stared at the check. "You could hire anyone. A trained specialist." "I have," Evelyn cut in. "They lasted a week." "Alia doesn't trust degrees. She trusts tone." "You have the tone." Maya folded her hands. "This isn't about money for me." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Everything is about money, Ms. Lynn. You just don't know it yet." Maya looked up. "Then what is it about for you?" "Control," Evelyn said without hesitation. "And making sure my daughter is never vulnerable again." Maya's breath caught. "You say that like she's a liability." "She's my daughter," Evelyn said tightly. "Which means she is my responsibility." "Entirely." Maya leaned forward. "Does Alia have any say in that?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Evelyn smiled. "Barely." "You're bold. That can be useful. But let's not mistake compassion for competence." Maya stood. "With respect, I'm not interested in being another piece of your power structure." Evelyn didn't flinch. "With respect, you already are. Whether you accept or not. You crossed a line when you sat beside her." Maya turned to leave. "You dropped out of King's College in your third year. Psychology major. You've worked 6 jobs in the last 4 years. Your brother Leo is a med student on scholarship, barely holding on. Rent due last week. 2 missed payments." Maya froze. "I'm not here to threaten you," Evelyn said. "I'm offering stability. For you. For him. For Alia." Maya faced her. "You know everything about me, but you still haven't answered one thing. What's really wrong with Alia?" Evelyn's face hardened. "She's not wrong. She's just fragile. This world isn't kind to children like her." "Then don't keep her caged," Maya said. "Let her breathe." "I can't afford to," Evelyn replied. "I already lost control once. I won't again." Maya's eyes narrowed. "Lost control of what?" Evelyn didn't answer. Instead, she handed Maya the folder. "Take it. Read it. Think. And then decide if you want to matter." Maya left without it. But that night, a second envelope appeared. This time, no letter. Just a photo. Alia, asleep, clutching the scarf Maya had given her. Behind it, a handwritten note in sharp cursive. "She remembers you." The next morning, Maya showed up at the Carter estate, still unsure what she was stepping into. A private car took her beyond gates taller than any building on her block. She was greeted not by staff, but by Alia herself, barefoot on the stone porch, arms stretched as if waiting for a hug. Maya didn't move. "Your mother sent me," she said. "I know," Alia replied. "She thinks I can't tell when people are sad." Maya knelt. "Are you sad?" "Not when you talk," Alia said. "Your voice makes the walls stop buzzing." Evelyn stood in the doorway, silent. She said nothing. Maya didn't look at her. She took Alia's hand and stepped inside. For now, that was enough. But deep down, she knew something was off. Evelyn wasn't just a mother protecting her daughter. She was guarding something else, something bigger. Maya just hadn't seen it yet. Alia adjusted faster than Maya expected. On her second day, she already knew the sound of Maya's footsteps in the hallway. By the end of the week, she could recognize Maya's moods by the way she knocked on the bedroom door, soft for calm, sharp when anxious. Maya never told her those things directly. She didn't have to. Alia simply listened harder than most. She had learned to survive in silence. At breakfast, Alia tapped the edge of her plate gently before asking, "What color is this jam?" "Deep red," Maya answered, but not angry red. More like, if warmth had a taste. Alia nodded like she understood. "Raspberry." Maya smiled. "Exactly." Every morning became a little lesson. Not the kind you'd find in a classroom, but in the way someone describes the smell of cinnamon rolls before the oven opens, or how a cello sounds like a voice that forgot how to scream. Maya never forced it. She followed Alia's pace, her questions, her hunger for detail. One afternoon, Alia asked what Maya's face looked like. Maya didn't lie. She described herself in shapes and textures, like the slope of her nose, the sharpness of her chin, the scar near her left eyebrow. "You sound like someone who used to fight," Alia said. "Only with life," Maya replied. In the evenings, they sat on the piano bench together. Alia's fingers searched for notes like memories she hadn't made yet. Maya never pushed. She let her explore the keys until sound became story. "I want to see the world," Alia said once, her voice low. "I want someone to describe it to me exactly how they feel it, not how they think I need to hear it." Maya nodded slowly. "You don't want filters." "No. I want the ugly and the beautiful. Both." "That's brave," Maya said. "That's human," Alia corrected. By the third week, Evelyn noticed. She started showing up unannounced during lessons. Not to participate, just to watch. She said nothing, but Maya felt the weight of her silence pressing against every word she spoke to Alia. The more Alia opened up, the colder Evelyn became. One day, while Maya was helping Alia identify spices by scent, Evelyn walked in and said, "She doesn't need distractions. She needs discipline." Maya didn't respond immediately. Alia froze. Maya gently guided her hands back to the cinnamon. "There's learning and joy too," she said. Evelyn stared for a long moment, then turned and left. Later that evening, Maya found her contract on the kitchen counter with 2 lines underlined in red. "Maintain structured activities as scheduled. Avoid unsupervised deviations." No note, just the underline. Maya didn't say anything to Alia, but she started noticing small things: doors that used to stay open now closed, cameras that blinked red in places they hadn't before, a new assistant hovering outside the study during sessions. Control was creeping back in. Alia felt it too. "She's watching again," she whispered one night, curled under her blanket. "She thinks you're changing me." Maya sat beside her on the edge of the bed. "Are you?" Alia thought for a long time. "I don't know. Maybe. But I like it." Maya brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Then it's not wrong." The tension with Evelyn didn't explode. It simmered. Quiet remarks. Sudden schedule changes. Passive-aggressive reminders about boundaries. Maya remained calm, respectful, professional, but never cold. She kept doing what she was hired for, but also what she knew was right. She read Alia books Evelyn disapproved of, let her taste spicy food, taught her how to whistle. And when Alia asked what thunder sounded like, they sat on the back porch during a storm, counting seconds between lightning and sound. One night, Alia asked a question that changed everything. "Do you think I'll ever see again?" Maya hesitated. "I think you already see more than most people." "But with my eyes," Alia pressed. "Would that change me?" "Maybe," Maya said honestly. "But it wouldn't change what matters." "Which is?" "That you know how to feel the world, not just look at it." Evelyn walked in during that moment, unnoticed at first. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When Maya looked up, Evelyn's face was unreadable. The next morning, Evelyn called her into the study. "You're getting too close," she said. Maya didn't pretend to misunderstand. "She's your daughter, not your prisoner." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "You don't know what it's like to lose control." "You're right," Maya replied. "I know what it's like to never have any." There was no shouting, no dramatic exit. But something shifted. Evelyn began attending sessions. She didn't speak, but her presence altered the air. Alia became quieter around her, less willing to ask questions, less herself. Maya noticed, and Evelyn noticed her noticing. One afternoon, Maya asked Evelyn directly, "Why are you afraid of her growing?" Evelyn stared out the window. "Because the more she grows, the more she'll need someone who isn't me." That night, Maya made a decision. She wouldn't pull back. She wouldn't slow down. Not for Evelyn's comfort. Not at the cost of the girl who finally found her voice. And if it meant walking a line that risked everything, so be it. Because Alia wasn't just opening up. She was waking up. And no amount of surveillance or control could stop that now. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of day that felt ordinary until it wasn't. Maya was organizing Alia's books while the girl napped in the other room, her fingers still curled from braille practice. She was rearranging the lower shelves, ones Evelyn rarely touched, when a book slipped out, revealing a small wooden box jammed into the corner. Curious, Maya pulled it free. Inside were a few drawings made by touch, raised outlines of faces, stars, and hands. Beneath them, a USB drive and a worn leather-bound notebook with no label. She hesitated for a moment, then pocketed both. If it was personal, she'd return it. But something told her to look first. That night, in her room, Maya opened the journal. The handwriting was sharp, deliberate. At first, it looked like Alia's reflections, poems, memories, dreams. But as she read further, the tone changed. Pages detailed an incident 5 years ago. The phrases accident, texting behind the wheel, and Alia's vision appeared in careful ink. The entries were signed not by Alia, but by Trevor Carter, Evelyn's brother. Her hands trembled as she inserted the USB. Folders opened instantly. Scanned medical reports, hospital discharge papers, internal Carter Holdings emails. One video showed Alia, 5 years old, eyes wide, laughing in a garden. The date was 3 weeks before the accident. Another was a security cam clip, Evelyn walking into a private clinic, visibly shaken. A note from Trevor dated 2 weeks after the crash. You can't erase everything, Evelyn. At some point, she'll remember. And if you keep stopping her treatments, she'll never forgive you. Maya sat frozen. Everything about Evelyn's tight grip on Alia made sense now. It wasn't just control, it was guilt. Deep, corrosive guilt. She hadn't just failed as a mother. She had caused the injury, and then buried every path that could lead to healing. Maya reached for her phone and called her brother. Leo, she said quietly, I need you to come over. Now, he asked. It's late. It's about a child who might still have a chance to see if her mother hadn't shut every door. There was a pause. I'll be there in 20. Leo arrived with his usual backpack of textbooks and diagnostic tools. Maya handed him the documents and waited while he read. He didn't speak for 10 full minutes. Then he looked up. These are real. Yes. And Evelyn Carter's been suppressing every medical lead for 5 years? Exactly. Leo flipped through the pages again. There's a study that just reopened in Berlin. Experimental treatment. High risk, but with her original condition, she might still have response in her optic nerves. But if Evelyn stopped previous referrals, she's probably blocked this too. Can we get Alia evaluated discreetly? Maya asked. Possibly. But we'd need access to her records, scans, prior tests. And we'd need Alia to agree. The next day, Maya sat with Alia on the bench by the piano. Can I ask you something important? Sure, Alia said. Do you remember the accident? Sometimes. Flashes. Mostly sounds. Maya hesitated. Do you ever think about getting your sight back? All the time, Alia admitted. But Mum says it's dangerous. That there's no real cure. What if she's wrong? Alia went silent. Why would she lie? Maya gently placed her hand over Alia's. Because sometimes people who hurt us think that keeping us close is the only way to be forgiven. That night, Maya confronted Evelyn. She waited in the study until the older woman returned from a charity event. You lied, Maya said plainly. You caused the crash. And then you covered it up. Evelyn didn't blink. You've been reading Trevor's old notes. I saw the reports. The footage. The denied treatments. Evelyn sighed. What do you want, Maya? An apology? That won't fix anything. No, Maya replied. I want you to stop playing God with her life. Evelyn's expression cracked, just slightly. Do you have any idea what it's like to see your child's face and know you did that to her? Then why not let her try to heal? Maya pressed. Because she's safe this way, Evelyn said. If she sees again, she'll see me for what I really am. She already knows, Maya said, her voice low. And she's still here. The tension was unbearable. Evelyn sat down, slowly, her hands shaking for the first time Maya had seen. I can't lose her. You already are, Maya said. Every time you lie, you push her further away. Maya didn't wait for permission. With Leo's help, she booked an independent consult with a neuro-ophthalmologist under a pseudonym. She told Alia everything. The girl didn't cry. She simply nodded. I want to go, she said. Even if it's scary. Maya squeezed her hand. I'll be with you. They scheduled the visit 2 towns over. The results were guarded but promising. There was still function in part of the visual cortex. Surgery might allow her to distinguish light, shape, even some color. When Evelyn found out, she didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She stood in Maya's doorway and said, if she dies under the knife, it's on you. If she lives in darkness forever, it's on you, Maya shot back. Everything unraveled from there. Evelyn tried to pull Alia from the program. Maya pushed back. Leo filed a medical ethics concern anonymously. The Carter name couldn't shield everything. Not forever. And when Trevor finally called, his voice shaky, he said, "Thank you for not walking away." By the time Maya sat with Alia in the pre-op waiting room, she wasn't afraid anymore. Not for herself. Only for the girl who finally had a chance to choose her own future. And for the woman who had spent years trying to hide from the past. Because once truth finds the light, it never goes back to sleep. The morning Evelyn told Maya that she'd be taking Alia to a special evaluation center. Her voice was steady, but her eyes didn't meet hers. Private facility, old contacts. Just routine, she said as she helped Alia into her coat. Maya nodded without protest. She knew Evelyn didn't trust the independent results. What Evelyn didn't know was that Maya had already planted a discreet tracking device inside the lining of Alia's travel bag. As soon as the door closed behind them, Maya called Leo. Within an hour, they were in his car, following the GPS signal as it pulsed out coordinates that led them far beyond city limits. The location was isolated, hidden behind tall hedges and electronic gates. It wasn't a hospital. It wasn't even a proper clinic. It was the same facility Maya had seen in one of the files, a private, unregistered institution Evelyn had used before. And standing at the gate when they arrived was someone Maya hadn't expected, Dr. Abram Weiss, the ophthalmologist who had been dismissed from Carter's medical board years ago under a vague cloud of ethical disagreements. Maya introduced herself quickly. Leo showed him the independent test results. Weiss blinked in disbelief. "I knew she had potential. They told me to stop looking. Can you get us in?" Maya asked. "You used to work here." Weiss nodded slowly. "I can't open doors," he said. "But I can tell you exactly which window won't be locked." Inside, Alia sat alone in an exam room, legs swinging from the edge of the leather bench, fingers fidgeting. A nurse had just dilated her eyes. "My mother says it's just to confirm what we already know," she told the technician calmly. But she wasn't calm. She had heard Maya's conversation with Evelyn the night before. Words about control, fear, shame. She wasn't a child anymore. She just hadn't been given the chance to speak. Evelyn was in another room, speaking with a doctor Maya recognized from the USB files. The one who had submitted repeated reports claiming Alia's vision could never be recovered. The same doctor who had ignored key indicators and dismissed them as false positives. Maya, Leo, and Weiss entered through a back hallway, bypassing the main desk. They stopped just outside the observation room where Evelyn stood, her arms crossed, watching Alia through a one-way mirror. "She doesn't need hope," Evelyn said. "She needs peace. She needs the truth," Maya said, stepping forward. Evelyn turned sharply. "What are you doing here?" "Making sure this ends," Maya replied. "You're not her mother," Evelyn hissed. "You don't get to decide what's best." "I'm not deciding anything," Maya said. "But I'm done watching you lie to her, to everyone." Evelyn's hand trembled slightly. "You think this is easy for me? I lost everything when she lost her sight." "No," Maya said. "You lost control. That's what you can't stand." Leo handed Weiss the independent diagnostics. He laid them out in front of the observing physician. "This is real," he said. "If you deny this again, it's malpractice." Weiss stepped into the room with Alia and sat down gently beside her. "Do you want to know what we really found?" he asked. Alia nodded. "Then you should hear it directly." Evelyn stormed in, but it was too late. Maya was already beside Alia, holding her hand. "I already know," Alia said before anyone spoke. Her voice was clear. "I've known for a long time." Evelyn froze. "What do you mean?" "That you were the one driving," Alia said quietly. "That you were looking at your phone." The room went still. Evelyn's lips parted, but no sound came. "I heard the crash. I remember the glass. I remember you crying in the hospital when you thought I was asleep. You said, it was my fault." Evelyn's knees buckled slightly. She reached for the back of a chair. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to keep you," Alia said. "Because I thought if I stayed quiet, you'd love me enough not to leave again." Tears streamed down Evelyn's face, silent and unfiltered. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "Then stop lying to me," Alia replied. "Let me try. Let me choose. I'm not afraid of seeing again. I'm afraid of spending the rest of my life wondering what if." Evelyn looked at her daughter, really looked, and for the first time, saw someone who didn't need protection. She needed freedom. Weiss handed Alia the file. It's a trial, he said. Not guaranteed. But based on your scans, the chances are better than they ever were. Alia didn't hesitate. I want to do it. I want Maya with me. Evelyn looked at Maya. Can I trust you to keep her safe? I've been trying to, Maya said. Even when you were too scared to. The doctor behind the desk asked for consent forms. Evelyn signed them, her hands still shaking. I'm not ready to let go, she whispered to Maya. Then hold her hand, Maya replied. But stop holding her back. As they prepared for the first round of pre-op evaluations, Evelyn sat beside Alia, no longer giving instructions, just listening. And when Alia rested her head on her mother's shoulder, it wasn't out of obedience. It was forgiveness. In the waiting room, Maya sat with Leo. She did it, she said. She faced her. So did you, Leo replied. And you didn't just protect her. You gave her power back. Maya didn't smile. She just looked through the glass, where a girl who had once been silent now held her own future in her hands. Evelyn Carter had built an empire on silence. But today, it began to crumble, not because of scandal or lawsuits or exposure, but because her daughter finally said, enough. And there was nothing more powerful than that. The day after the confrontation, Evelyn didn't come out of her room. The Carter estate felt quieter than usual, not silent in the clinical, composed way it had always been, but in the way a place feels when someone inside it is finally breaking. Maya stayed with Alia, waiting. No lectures, no plans, just presence. That afternoon, as Alia sat by the piano, Evelyn entered without a word and stood behind her. Her hands trembled. Alia, she said, her voice low and unfamiliar. I was wrong. Alia didn't turn. She kept her fingers lightly on the keys. I know. Evelyn took a breath. I'm sorry. The silence after was long. And real. Not the kind you fill, but the kind you feel. Alia didn't respond immediately. Then, softly, she said, it's the first time you've said it. I thought I'd be angrier. But I'm just tired. Evelyn sat beside her. You should be. I made you carry something that was mine. The next week moved fast. With Maya's help, Alia returned to the independent ophthalmologist for an updated evaluation. More advanced imaging, deeper analysis. The verdict came in clearly. There was still residual response in both optic nerves. Enough to justify surgery. Enough to hope. 60% chance of partial sight restoration, the doctor said. That means outlines, light, motion, maybe basic colors. Evelyn listened without speaking. Alia turned to her. So what do you think? Evelyn looked at her daughter for a long moment. I think this is no longer my decision to make. Alia smiled faintly. That's all I wanted to hear. After the appointment, Evelyn asked Maya to join her for tea, something she had never done before without agenda. I want you to run a new division of the Carter Foundation, she said without build-up. Programs for visually impaired children. Global reach. Real work, not PR. Maya was quiet. That's generous. It's not charity, Evelyn said. It's compensation, for you, and for the hundreds of kids like Alia who didn't have someone to fight for them. Maya looked up. You want to hire me? Evelyn nodded. I want to partner with you. You understand what they need. I can fund it. But I need someone who won't turn it into another brand. Maya didn't answer right away. She thought of what Alia had said after the doctor visit. How being seen wasn't just about eyes. It was about choice. I'll help build it, Maya finally said. But I won't be yours. I'll be theirs. Evelyn accepted that without protest. The night before Alia's procedure, the three of them sat in the garden under a blanket of soft wind and moonlight. Evelyn wasn't giving instructions. Maya wasn't rescuing anyone. And Alia, for once, didn't feel like she was being prepared, just supported. If I wake up and everything's still dark, I don't want anyone to cry, she said. If I wake up and I see even a shadow, that's already more than I had yesterday. Evelyn reached for her hand. Whatever happens, I'm here. No more hiding. No more trying to make the world smaller so I could feel in control. You can have it back now. Alia turned slightly toward her. I never wanted to take it. I just wanted to be part of it. The surgery was scheduled for 9 a.m. Leo came too, not as Maya's brother, but as someone who had followed this journey long enough to care. In the waiting room, Evelyn didn't pace. She didn't bark orders. She held Maya's hand once, and Maya didn't pull away. When the doctor emerged 4 hours later, his expression gave them the answer before he even spoke. She's awake. And she saw light. Evelyn's face cracked, this time not from guilt, but relief. Maya exhaled for the first time in days. When they entered the recovery room, Alia turned her head toward the sound of their steps. I see the edge of the window, she whispered. It's not sharp, but it's there. Evelyn knelt beside her. You're incredible. I'm just me, Alia said. Finally, for the first time, Evelyn didn't try to define what that meant. She just nodded. Later that week, Maya received the final version of the foundation proposal. Her name was listed as co-director. She read it once, then again, and then she called the board. I'll stay on as program advisor, she said, but I won't take a title. I need the freedom to work beyond this
kind that doesn't
walls.
get erased.
When they asked
and
why,
if this story
she
meant
answered
something
simply,
to you,
because
if
I
it
don't
reminded
belong
you
to
that
Evelyn
doing the
Carter,
right thing
and
doesn't
neither
have
do
to
the
be
children
loud to be
we're trying to
powerful.
reach.
Then like this
By
video,
the end of the month,
drop a
the
comment
house
to
felt
share your
different.
thoughts.
Not
and
renovated,
don't forget to
just
subscribe
lived
to
in.
the channel.
Alia began
Because
building
truth
her
isn't
own
just a
tactile art
story.
pieces,
It's a weapon,
mixing
and it
textures to
belongs to
express
all of
things
us.
she couldn't always name. Evelyn started attending therapy, not for optics, for truth. Maya continued her work quietly, visiting community centers, starting a pilot program. One afternoon, Alia asked if they could visit the cafe where it all began. I want to see what it looked like, she said. Even just a little. So they did. And for a moment, standing outside the same glass window where Evelyn once watched from a distance, they all stood together. Not perfect, not fixed, but finally honest. And that was more healing than any surgery could offer. 6 months later, the gallery was filled with voices that didn't rely on sight to find wonder. Children moved through the space guided by touch, sound, and scent, exploring the tactile sculptures and textured canvases Alia had created with her own hands. Works shaped not by what she saw, but by what she felt. The exhibit was called Seeing with the Heart, and it wasn't just an art show. It was a declaration. Alia stood near the entrance, wearing a soft pair of rose-tinted glasses that helped her perceive contrast and outlines. She couldn't see faces clearly, but she could recognize shapes, shadows, and light. And she could see Evelyn, no longer the towering figure who controlled every room she entered, but a mother standing quietly to the side, letting her daughter take the lead. Evelyn had changed, not because she lost power, but because she learned when to stop using it. She no longer arrived with an entourage. She didn't correct Alia's speeches or manage the narrative. She simply showed up, held her daughter's hand when needed, and listened. When asked by a journalist what had inspired the transformation, Evelyn replied, "My daughter, and the woman who refused to let me define her." Maya watched from a distance, her expression calm. She hadn't taken the spotlight, though she could have. Instead, she had used the last 6 months to build something of her own, an independent center called Lumos, where children with visual impairments were taught to navigate the world through sound, touch, intuition, and creativity. The program wasn't about overcoming blindness. It was about expanding the ways children understood reality, ways most people never considered. Lumos was already working with schools, hospitals, and families around the country, and none of it carried Evelyn's name. That was intentional. When asked if she was still involved with the Carter Foundation, Maya said, "Only when I'm needed. My work is with the kids, not the donors." She didn't need validation. Watching a 6-year-old identify the sound of rain on a tin roof or describe what blue feels like in their own words, that was enough. Toward the end of the exhibit, Alia gave a brief speech. She stood with her cane in one hand and a sculpture in the other. "I used to think seeing was everything," she said. "But I was wrong. I see more now, not because of what my eyes can do, but because of what I've learned to feel. And that's what I want for everyone here. To remember that our hearts notice things our eyes miss." The room went still. Maya blinked back tears. Evelyn did not. She let them fall. As guests began to leave, a small boy approached Alia and asked if she could really see him. Alia smiled and reached out, touching his hand. "I can see your shape," she said. "But more than that, I can hear your kindness. And I think that's better." The boy laughed and ran off, his mother whispering thank you on the way out. Outside, Maya stood under the soft evening light, thinking of where it had all begun. A coffee shop, a lonely child, a risk that cost her a job but gave her a purpose. Evelyn joined her, hands tucked into her coat. "You were right," she said quietly. "About everything." Maya didn't respond with triumph. She just nodded. "Sometimes people don't need saving," she said. "They just need someone to stand beside them long enough to remember who they are." As they walked back inside, Alia was waiting, holding two small sculptures in her hands. One was smooth, warm, shaped like a rising sun. The other was textured, uneven, shaped like a heart that had been broken and put back together. "These are for you," she said, "because one of you gave me courage, and the other gave me truth." Evelyn reached for the heart. Maya took the sun, and for a moment, there was nothing left to fix. There are things in life you don't need to see to believe. But sometimes, when the heart finally opens, even the darkest shadows begin to fade. If this story moved you, don't forget to leave a comment, share your thoughts, and most importantly, subscribe to Cracks of Light for more stories that remind us all. Healing isn't about being perfect, it's about being seen.